Let's move on to our sweet players, and I'm going to start, and my guy this week is Pascal Siakam, who's coming off yet another monster performance last night against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Just absolutely put on a clinic in terms of one-on-one play, and basically getting whatever he wanted at the rim, scoring at will. And if you look at his last 15 games, because we love our arbitrary endpoints here, he's averaging 20.4 points, 6.8 rebounds, 4.1 assists, shooting 52.8% from the field, 40.4% from three, and the Raptors have been 19.7 points per 100 possessions better with him on the floor. I feel like we're seeing a superstar leap from this guy. And, you know, one of the things that stood out is the Raptors aren't really staggering, or they've started to stagger their guys' minutes. They weren't staggering their minutes so much at the start of the season, but lately they've basically mothballed their all-bench looks, and Siakam is usually the guy who they're throwing out there to kind of captain those transitional lineups. And so you notice when he's out there as basically the primary creator, he's not a complementary player. Like, you can run an offense through him. He is like a guy who creates his own offense at an elite level. And the one thing that I want to spotlight is just his ability to finish on the move. Like, his ability to basically go full throttle in the open floor, and then to have the body control and the touch to still lay the ball in, you know, regardless of the speed that he's moving at, is mind-bending stuff. And that, like, Russell Westbrook is probably the guy who has been most impressive at doing that over the years. I don't want to compare those two players, but like, that is a skill that I just literally cannot comprehend. And Siakam is so good at that. And there's that. And it's also his ability to finish while he's spinning in either direction, while jumping off the wrong foot, while falling down. He's shooting 70% in the restricted area this season. So there isn't a whole lot that a defender can do against that. They're just always a step slow, or they're off balance. And, you know, no matter what position he's contorting his body into, he somehow manages to lay it up and in.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned he's not a complimentary player anymore, because that's a big distinction. It's one thing for a role player or an up-and-coming young player to have kind of like a breakout season in the shadows of a Kawhi Leonard, a Kyle Lowry, whatever. And yeah, sure, in terms of maybe who you'd pick right now, obviously Kawhi Leonard's the better basketball player, but there have been a number of times this season, and Wednesday night in Oklahoma City was another example where on a court with all-stars, with superstars, with MVP caliber players, Pascal Siakam was the best player on the court overall. And that hasn't happened once or twice. Like that, I think I've mentioned it on the show, but like one thing I do every season the last few years is I try to keep a running log throughout the year between trying to watch as much ball as I can. If I miss a game, you know, condensed versions, box scores, and keeping a log of who was the best player on the court in every single game. And for Siakam now, I'm up to 10 times this year, which is kind of absurd for a guy that started playing basketball 7 years ago. I just think you mentioned the superstar leap, and I don't know what else to call it. Like, that's what we're seeing right now. This guy's the best player on the floor with all-stars around him more often than not the last couple weeks. It's kind of crazy. And I just think when you look at the evidence, like the sample size we've got this season, what he's doing for a championship contender, I think we can call them, the way he's improved even as like a catch and shoot corner 3-point shooter, how unstoppable he looks in transition. He can be like a quasi point forward. He can defend pretty much every position. Essentially, all the evidence is pointing to, outside of the fact that you didn't expect Pascal Siakam to be a superstar, guess what, guys? The evidence is pointing to Pascal Siakam kind of being a superstar.
Yeah, he's definitely getting there if he's not there already. And I mean, he's been he's been easily a top 30 player in the NBA this season, and maybe better than that. And to your point about his, you know, evolving catch and shoot game, he's shooting 40.6% from the corners this season. Still hasn't quite found that above the break three. Still can't really shoot it off the dribble. So I feel like that's maybe the next stage in his evolution. And the one thing I'll say is I do think his defense is a bit overrated. Yeah, he can credibly guard four positions, and that definitely boosts his profile on that end, and like the versatility is very nice, but like I'd say he's average to slightly above average at guarding those four positions. And there are certain things that he does really well, like his closing speed, getting out to challenge shots is incredible, and he has some blocks on three-pointers that are just astounding. But aside from that, like, I don't think that he has one elite defensive skill. It's more so just that he's like capable of doing pretty much anything, which is obviously extremely valuable. But I do think his impact at that end can be a tad overstated, and he is still just a little bit too jumpy and hyperactive sometimes. But I mean, that's really all the nits that I can pick. Like, he is a ridiculous talent, and like you mentioned about him only having played basketball for a few years, he's come so far so fast, and it just makes you kind of dream on what he could look like a couple years from now.
Yeah, and you know, to kind of counter the argument you were making about the defense, I agree with you in the sense that I think sometimes if you watch him defend one-on-one, he's a solid defender, but yeah, he's not the best 3 or 4 guys you can think of in that regard. But I think what you mentioned, like him being that frenetic defensively and his closeout speed and his ability to kind of play as a rover sometimes on defense, like, to me, that is an elite defensive skill. You know, there are the Al Horfords of the world, or even the Marc Gasols of the world, who their defensive impact is about like positioning, IQ, and those things. And obviously those are elite skills. Sometimes it just helps to be able to jump out of the gym and close down guys in the blink of an eye. And Pascal Siakam can do those things.
Yeah, no, I don't deny that. I just think, I don't know, and maybe this is a straw man. I just feel like I've seen a lot of people kind of referring to him as an elite defender, and I don't think he's there yet. I definitely think that he can get there, but I just think that he's a little bit overrated in that regard. But again, like, we're picking nits here because this guy has just made an unbelievable leap this season, and I have kind of, throughout the season, as we've done sort of our quarter season awards, mid-season awards, I've gone with De'Aaron Fox as my most improved player, and I can't really stand by that anymore. I think at this point, this is Siakam's award to lose.